So the Naruto series has made a name for itself for having one of the strongest and most effective cast of antagonists or anti-heroes, a lot of whom are morally complex and are motivated by tragic backstories that shaped their opposition to the shinobi world. 3 of whom I highlighted in my most recent video, the greatest characters of Naruto, and I believe that it is this trend of morally grey villains that put Naruto on the map, and a lot of people think that it started with Gaara, the misunderstood psychotic mass murderer turned righteous leader of the Sand Village, but the truth is that this aspect or idea behind sympathetic antagonists goes as far back as the first ones introduced, Zabuza and Haku, the demon of the mist and the last survivor of the ice-style Kekkei Genkai wielding Yuki clan. Haku was actually one of the earliest shinobi to help forge or shape Naruto Uzumaki's perceptions of ninja and inspire him to find his own shinobi path, and through that, Haku and Zabuza managed to have pivotal roles as antagonists despite being introduced so early on in the series. A role that is a lot more important than I thought at first, admittedly. So today, I'm going to look at the story of Haku and Zabuza and analyze how much they've influenced Naruto's perception and how they helped introduce core concepts about the shinobi system at the very start of the series. And a quick reminder, if Naruto analysis videos sound like your cup of tea, then be sure to subscribe in order to not miss out on anything we put out. And let's get to it. So one major theme reiterated throughout the story, and one that I tackle all the time here on my channel, is the questionable morality of the shinobi world, and how no hidden village is inherently good, that all shinobi by nature are evil, killers for hire, tools for their state, and in no arc is this idea more present than here. It is in fact most present in the demon Zabuza Momochi, formerly of the Hidden Mist, and the ultimate byproduct of the Mist's brutal graduation ritual. In order to forge their shinobi into effective tools and wipe out any human emotions they may have, emotions that could hinder one from becoming a complete tool to their state. That's why in order for young ninja to graduate from the Mist Academy, they had to kill their opponent. If they were able to do that, then they've demonstrated that they can serve their nation effectively, that crossing ethical red lines wouldn't prevent them from completing their assignments. That's why many nations hired shinobi from the Mist. However, the Mist had to discontinue this barbaric ritual when Zabuza slaughtered an entire class of graduating students before he'd even enrolled into the academy. The Mist's program had accounted for many casualties, but this was just one too many. This did, however, solidify Zabuza's reputation as an effective shinobi tool. That's what earned him his moniker, the Demon of the Mist. He became proficient in the silent killing technique, where he'd cloak his presence with a heavy mist and then he'd quickly assassinate his target before the target could notice. And as Zabuza rose through the ranks of Kirigakure, becoming an acknowledged Anbu member and gaining a small following, he eventually came to clash with the Mizukage, and he attempted to stage a coup d'etat alongside a group of his followers. However, the attempt on Yagura's life did not go so well for Zabuza, and he had to flee the village. And on his way out, he would run into a lonely, recently orphaned child that possessed a bloodline trait, that being Haku. The boy was lost and rejected by his society, which is why Zabuza decided to bring some purpose into his life by recruiting him as his shinobi tool and using his Kekkei Genkai to achieve his goals. And Haku willingly and happily obliged. As long as his life had some purpose, as long as someone needed him, then he wasn't a lone reject that was unnecessary to his world. He was happy, despite the fact that he did not like being a shinobi. These themes are major to the story and get reiterated in the latter chapters, like how Gaara was dealing with the same existential dread as Haku, being a reject that served no purpose, except that unlike how Haku found purpose as a tool for Zabuza, Gaara decided to fight for himself and kill others just to prove his own existence, which he was inspired to do by the words of his dying uncle Yukimaru. And then we also see a parallel relationship with Kimimaru and Orochimaru, another lost soul that was so lonely that once someone acknowledged him, he dedicated his life to serve him as his personal tool. Except that Orochimaru was somehow more detached and less caring than even Zabuza. This brings us back to the events of the Land of Waves arc. Now, while Zabuza was living in exile, he still planned to eventually return to the Hidden Mist and usurp the power from the corrupt 4th Mizukage. But before he could do any of that, he'd need to amass a larger following and collect more funds. So because of that, Zabuza started accepting commissions from drug lords and mafia bosses. One of which was the corrupted shipping mogul and businessman Gato, who owned the Gato Shipping Company. Gato had the exploitative mindset of a crooked tycoon and wanted the resources of the small island of the Land of Waves for himself. So when his company took control of all the island's shipping routes, he created a monopoly which in turn isolated the country from the outside world. This resulted in the Land of Waves becoming an impoverished and hunger-stricken country. Gato and his gang exploited the land, and they had a zero-tolerance policy to any dissent. They didn't hesitate to make an example of anyone that tried to rise up against their regime. All of that to scare the inhabitants and demoralize them until no one had the courage to stand up to Gato. However, rumors started spreading around about a renowned bridge builder, Tazuna's little project. He wanted to build a bridge that connected the Land of Waves to the mainland, which would break Gato's monopoly and allow free-flowing trade between the Land of Waves and the other nations. And Gato couldn't have that, so he hired Zabuza and his men in order to kill Tazuna. He was employing the demon as his shinobi tool. Meanwhile, Tazuna knew his life was at risk, so he hired shinobi of the Leave, Team 7, under the false pretenses that it was just for protection from random bandits and that he wasn't actively being targeted. The truth is that the people of the Land of Waves were too impoverished to afford anything above a C-ranked mission. This is what put the tools of the Leaf in direct confrontation against the former tools of the Mist. Naruto actually has an unexpected encounter with an unmasked Haku, not knowing that this was the same shinobi that collected Zabuza's body, and the one that he'd faced later on in the bridge. Haku tells Naruto that when a person has something precious that they want to protect, that's when they become genuinely strong. This is also another theme you see reiterated in the series. For example, when Naruto faced the partially transformed Gaara, who was only fighting for himself, Naruto remembered Haku's words, and he displayed true strength when he fights off and defeats Gaara in order to protect someone precious to him, that being Sakura. This could also be seen in how the third Hokage changed the tide of the battle against Orochimaru when he remembered that this wasn't just another teacher-student clash, but that he was fighting to protect the precious next generation of the Leaf. Or even how the generally timid and scared Nagato awakened his true strength unintentionally in order to protect his precious friend Yahiko. Haku himself hated the ways of the shinobi. Zabuza said that he was too soft to truly embrace those ways, and didn't like inflicting pain onto others. But Haku was willing to shut his own heart off and act like a full-fledged shinobi if it meant he'd become a useful tool to his master Zabuza. To Haku, his dream was to serve the demon as effectively as he wanted. Because to him, Zabuza was the one he considered to be most precious. Precious enough that his true strength would only come out when he was protecting Zabuza. You see, despite being the first major character to die in the manga, Haku was actually really skilled and also very fast. And Zabuza believed that he was actually more powerful than both himself and Kakashi. But you see, the thing is, Haku always had a severe mental nerve because he hated fighting and hurting others, and was always holding back, which is something that both Naruto and Sasuke make note of. Not only did he give them several warnings, but also whenever he attacked them, he intentionally avoided hitting their vital spots. The only reason he fought at all was to help Zabuza achieve his dreams, which was ironically his own dream. He was happy being Zabuza's tool, because at least it gave him some purpose. He was necessary to someone. Haku's devotion ran so deep that when Naruto managed to tag him with his Nine-Tails amp, Haku lost his reason for living because he failed to serve the interest of his master. He saw himself as a broken tool that lost its usefulness to Zabuza, and he found an opportunity to be of use one last time when he intercepted Kakashi's Raikiri in order to protect the one that was most precious to him. Haku had a sad existence. Naruto couldn't understand why he'd dedicate his entire life to someone like Zabuza that didn't seem to particularly care for anyone. But being Zabuza's tool was a far greater alternative than being shunned and rejected by everyone in Haku's eyes. Haku came from a line of Kekkei Genkai users that were once useful assets in the civil wars of the Mist. However, once the wars subsided, those same clans were linked to warring times and conflicts by everyone in the public, so the Yuki clan became feared, loathed, and persecuted for their special powers. Haku's mother hid her powers from the public, but once Haku awakened his ability, his father secretly found out about it and he gathered a mob to kill his wife and even tried to kill Haku. But Haku killed the mob and escaped. Afterwards, he became an orphaned kid on the streets with no family and no purpose, shunned by everyone until Zabuza came along. The same ability that made everyone hate Haku, Zabuza didn't just overlook it, he cherished it and wanted it. Even if it was for his own selfish purposes, Haku was indebted to the demon because he was the first to acknowledge and respect him. For that, he'd easily put his qualms against the ways of the shinobi aside and try to serve him. And for that, he'd gladly sacrifice his life. Now, there's a major theme that gets challenged ever so often throughout the course of the series, but not more than it does here. How shinobi are meant to be just emotionless tools for the powerful to use, and how they shouldn't let their emotions dictate their actions. How they should follow through with the mission regardless of the circumstances. We're first made to believe that that's the case here, that Zabuza views Haku as a tool, the same way Gato views Zabuza, but after being guilted by Naruto's speech, where Naruto reminded Zabuza just how loyal Haku was to him, that Haku didn't even have dreams of his own. His only dream was to serve and be useful to Zabuza. That's when we see Zabuza tear up and learn that he's actually been suppressing his feelings all along. Even shinobi as cold as Zabuza are human, no matter how hard they try to hide that simple fact. The demon that slaughtered an entire graduating class couldn't pretend like his longtime subordinate was just a tool to him. It was shinobi code to not cry or show any emotions, and both Zabuza and the members of Team 7 failed that code when they showed affection towards their fallen comrades. It was clear that Zabuza was bottling up his feelings of grief for Haku, as he goes from getting bitch slapped by Kakashi and getting both his arms injured while suppressing his emotions, to being able to take Gato and most of his men with just a kunai in his mouth after he broke the shinobi rules and displayed his vulnerability or his true emotions. And now he wanted Kakashi to place him next to Haku so that he could be near his subordinate before he passes, since he knew that they were going to different worlds in the afterlife, that the kind-hearted Haku would likely end up in the Pure Lands, unlike the demon. And this whole encounter has some strong and lasting effects on Naruto. It was Naruto's battle against Zabuza and Haku that exposed him to the true ways of the shinobi, to put one's feelings aside and become heartless just to complete their mission, to use and be used by people like tools. There's even a code in the shinobi rulebook that says that a shinobi should never show his feelings no matter what the circumstances. That feelings are a weakness that only cloud his judgment and weaken his sense of duty. And this was truly the first arc where we saw the nature of shinobi get challenged or brought up in a negative light. The next is likely when Pain exposed the hypocrisy of the Leaf Village. But back then, people were actually willing to denounce the shinobi ways for the unbelievable burden they imposed onto these children that were sent to the front lines, for the human toll that they had on their soldiers. Just like how the White Fang was shamed and dishonored for putting his mission's objectives on hold, despite doing that to protect his comrades on the line of duty. It was a shinobi's job to kill the emotions in his heart in order to execute the mission at hand. That's just a matter of fact that most shinobi had to live with. That was the case across all the hidden villages. However, if the Demon of the Mist failed to do just that for his fallen subordinate, then you can imagine how difficult this was for other more sympathetic souls. And that's why Naruto came to the conclusion that he will find his own ninja way. And he did so on the graves of Zabuza and Haku, a way that was straight and true and without any regrets, according to him. And while a lot of people will say that Naruto changed nothing about the shinobi system, his own ninja way was very different and straight far from what was traditional. Shinobi were explicitly banned from displaying their emotions, but Naruto did not hesitate to do so. He cried for his enemies more than once, and he used his emotions as a moral compass that dictated whether his actions were right or wrong. That's how he managed to get through to Gaara during their fight, or why he came to the conclusion of forgiving Nagato despite all that he did to the village, or how he defeated Obito and got him to switch sides, or how he finally got Sasuke to work alongside him to maintain the balance in the shinobi system. And all these ideals were initially forged here when he faced Zabuza and Haku on the would-be great Naruto bridge. Even Haku's message of people becoming truly strong when they protect something precious to them is also an ideal we see reiterated multiple times throughout the story. Even in that same arc, how Inari and those villagers fought for what was precious to them, that being the land of waves, and then they showed their true strength when they finally stood up to the crooks that Gato hired in order to take back their land. And honestly, Zabuza and Haku were the first in the line of many great antagonists that weren't just evil for the fuck of it, but due to their circumstances or tragic backstories. And because of that, I figured that they deserved to be honored in their own video. And now, if you've made it this far, then this may be your call to subscribe, and other than that, have a great day and peace out. Bye.